Arthur was sitting in the back of that car wash, scrubbing the rims of a heavy-duty cement truck, labeled Sterling Sanctuary Fleet. Every circular motion of his brush felt like a personal attack from Clara. He was fuming. He wasn't just pressed. He was reaching critical meltdown levels. That's when a black town car pulled into the wash. Out stepped Victor Vance, a rival developer who had been trying to buy the Sterling lot for years. Victor was a snake in a $5,000 suit, known for playing dirty to get what he wanted. He walked straight up to Arthur, ignoring the staff-only sign. "Rough day at the office, Artie?" Victor sneered, looking at Arthur's soap-covered boots. "I saw the news. Clara's really running the lobby now, huh? She turned your family legacy into her personal playground, while you're out here doing manual labor. That's a tough look, man." Arthur stood up, wiping his hands on a greasy rag. "What do you want, Vance? Come to laugh at the downfall?" "Actually, I came to offer you a redemption arc," Victor said, lowering his voice. "Clara's project is massive, but it's fragile. She's leveraged everything on this urban renewal deal. If the city inspectors find a major safety violation or a legal discrepancy in the foundation permits, the whole thing gets canceled. Investors pull out, the bank forecloses, and the land goes back on the market. My market." Arthur's eyes narrowed. "And what's in it for me?" "I buy the land for pennies. I give you a 10% consultant fee. That's a cool 50 mil, Arthur. You get your lifestyle back, and Clara gets deleted from the industry. It's a win-win." He didn't think about the 40 years of loyalty he'd already trashed. He didn't think about the fact that Clara was actually improving the city. All he saw was a chance to clout chase his way back to the top. "I'm in. What's the move?" The plan was simple. Arthur still had his old Legacy Founder ID badge. It was technically invalid, but most of the night security guards were new and might not check the system. He was supposed to sneak into the site at 2 a.m., plant some faked structural reports in the lead architect's office, and accidentally trigger a gas leak sensor that would force a citywide emergency inspection. Arthur felt like a secret agent. He thought he was finally playing at Clara's level. He spent the evening rehearsing his stealth mission, feeling that old, toxic ego inflating again. He thought he was about to ratio Clara once and for all. At 2:15 a.m., Arthur approached the side gate of the sanctuary construction site. He was wearing a dark hoodie, looking like a low-tier burglar. He swiped his old badge. Green light. Access granted. "Too easy," Arthur whispered, a smug grin returning to his face. "Clara's getting sloppy. She forgot to patch the security system." He navigated through the steel skeletons of the building, reaching the modular office trailers. He broke into the lead architect's office, pulled out the fake documents Victor had given him, and started stuffing them into the approved permits folder. He was seconds away from hitting the gas sensor button when the lights in the trailer suddenly flickered on. The room was flooded with blinding white LED light. Sitting in the high-back leather chair behind the desk wasn't a night guard. It was Clara. She was wearing a silk robe over her suit, holding a tablet, looking like she'd been waiting for him all night. She didn't look surprised. She didn't look scared. She looked bored. "Arthur," she said, her voice echoing in the small trailer. "You're late. I told the security team to keep the old badge active until 2:30 a.m. I didn't want you to have to climb the fence. You're not as athletic as you used to be." Arthur dropped the fake papers, his heart hitting warp speed. "Clara, I was just checking on the progress. You know, for the family name." "Save the cap, Arthur," Clara said, swiping a finger across her tablet. A screen on the wall turned on, showing a crystal-clear 4K video feed of Arthur meeting Victor Vance at the car wash, followed by audio of their entire conversation. "I've owned that car wash through a shell company for 2 months. Did you really think I'd let you work somewhere I couldn't monitor your nonsense? Arthur's knees went weak. You baited me? No, Arthur, you baited yourself, Clara said, standing up. I knew Victor would come for you. Snakes always find each other. I just provided the garden. These fake papers you're holding, they're printed on paper with invisible tracking ink. And that gas sensor? It's connected directly to the police department's fraud unit. Outside, the sound of sirens began to wail, getting closer and closer. Red and blue lights started dancing against the trailer windows. Victor Vance was arrested 10 minutes ago, Clara said, walking toward him. You just committed industrial espionage and attempted sabotage on a city-funded project. That's not just a divorce problem, Arthur. That's federal time. Arthur slumped against the wall, looking absolutely cooked. Clara, please. We were together for 40 years. You can't do this to me. Clara stopped just inches from him. She reached out and straightened his hoodie, a gesture that looked motherly, but felt deadly. You told me in that text that you were done with the average life, Arthur. You wanted to be that guy. Well, that guy has to handle the consequences of his own actions. I'm not your ride or die anymore. I'm just the woman who's about to watch you get handcuffed in 4K. She turned around and picked up her champagne glass from the desk. The trash is ready for pickup. As the police entered the trailer to haul Arthur away, Clara didn't even look back. She just sat down and went back to her blueprints. She had counter-hacked his soul. Arthur's first week in county jail was a total nightmare fuel scenario. He was sharing a cell with a guy named Crusher, who didn't appreciate Arthur's constant capping about his former $1 million status. I'm telling you, man, I was a mogul, Arthur would whine, sitting on his thin, scratchy cot. My ex-wife finessed me. It was industrial espionage. I'm a political prisoner. Crusher just looked up from his book, his eyes cold. Shut it, Artie. You're a clown who got caught trying to sabotage a lady. In here, that makes you a certified loser. Now, go scrub the floor before I delete your dessert privileges. Arthur was pressed. He was used to being the one giving orders, the one flexing his way through life. Now, he was at the bottom of the food chain, literally scrubbing the grime off the communal showers. Every time he picked up a brush, he remembered the car wash. He remembered the black business card. He realized Clara hadn't just put him in jail. She had programmed his entire environment to remind him of his failure. Meanwhile, back in the real world, Clara was peaking. The Sterling Sanctuary wasn't just a local project anymore. It had gone global. Clara had just won the International Architect of the Year award, and her face was on the cover of Forbes with the title The $1 Billion Silence: How Clara Sterling Rebuilt an Empire from Scratch. She was currently in a high-rise office in Dubai, overlooking the desert skyline. She was wearing a white power suit that cost more than Arthur's entire legal defense fund. Her team was busy scaling the sanctuary model to 3 other continents. She had turned a $1 million seed into a $1 billion beast. Miss Sterling, her assistant Sarah said, handing her a tablet. The legal team for Mr. Vance is asking for a plea deal. They're willing to testify against Arthur in the fraud case if we drop the civil suit. Clara took a sip of her expensive green tea, her eyes fixed on the horizon. No deals, Sarah. Tell them we're going for the strong maximum sentence. I want the industry to know that if you come for the sanctuary, you get canceled permanently. And what about Arthur's latest letter? Sarah asked, holding up a crumpled piece of yellow paper. He's begging for a visit. He says he has strong information about your godfather's hidden assets. Clara let out a soft, dry laugh. Arthur doesn't have information. He has strong delusions. He's trying to gaslight me from behind bars. Burn the letter. Better yet, frame it and put it in the break room as a reminder of what happens when you trade loyalty for strong clout. Arthur, meanwhile, was sitting in the prison library, trying to use his 1 hour of internet access to find a loophole. He searched for Clara's name, hoping for a scandal, a lawsuit, anything, but all he saw were headlines of her success. He saw a video of her giving a TED Talk about the power of walking away. The video had 50 million views. The comments were full of people calling her a queen and a legend. "She's using our divorce as a marketing strategy," Arthur yelled, causing the librarian to hiss at him. "She's monetizing my pain." He realized then that Clara had truly won the breakup. She wasn't just living well, she was turning his betrayal into her brand identity. Every time someone bought a unit in the sanctuary, they were essentially buying a piece of her victory over him. He looked at his reflection in the computer monitor, pale, stressed, and wearing a uniform that made him look like a non-playable character. He was the villain in her story, and the world was simping for the hero. As the guard tapped on the table to tell him his time was up, Arthur felt a cold realization sink in. He wasn't just in prison for a few years. He was in a social prison for the rest of his life. Even if he got out, he'd always be the guy who tried to sabotage Clara Sterling. He was hard stuck in the shadows of the empire he helped destroy. Arthur was 6 months into his federal vacation, and the gray walls were starting to close in on his sanity. He had gone from a $1 million man to a cigarette-trading amateur. But Arthur, being the delusional guy he is, wasn't ready to take the L just yet. He spent every waking hour in the prison's law library, trying to find a legal glitch that would overturn his case. "I just need one loophole," he'd mutter, surrounded by dusty law books. "One technicality in the trust fund documents, and I'm back in the game. I'll ratio Clara's legal team so hard their heads will spin." He'd started a small rebellion among the inmates, promising them that if they helped him research, he'd hire them all as security consultants once he was back on top. He was capping so hard he almost believed his own lies. He'd even convinced a young inmate named Spider, who was a literal wizard with paperwork, to help him draft a massive civil lawsuit against Clara for emotional distress and illegal asset seizure. "This is it, Spider," Arthur whispered, his eyes bloodshot. "This lawsuit is going to break the internet. Once the press gets a hold of how she stole my inheritance, her investors will ghost her project. We're going to cancel the sanctuary from the inside out." Spider looked at the documents, then back at Arthur. "I don't know, Artie. This looks sus. Clara Sterling's legal team is the best in the business. They're basically final bosses in suits." "Don't worry about them," Arthur snapped. "I know her. She's a mid-player who got lucky. I'm the one with the vision." Arthur spent his last few dollars of commissary credit to have the lawsuit officially filed. He spent the next 3 days pacing his cell, waiting for the shockwaves to hit. He imagined Clara's phone blowing up, her stock price tanking, and her crawling back to him to beg for a settlement. He was already planning his comeback outfit. On the 4th day, Arthur was summoned to the visitor's room. He walked in with a main character strut, expecting to see a terrified lawyer. Instead, sitting behind the glass was a woman in a sharp navy blue suit. She wasn't Clara's lawyer. She was the head of the state prison board. "Mr. Sterling," she said, her voice like dry ice. "I received your filing against Miss Clara Sterling. It was quite a read. Very imaginative." Arthur leaned in, a smug grin on his face. "Ready to talk settlement? I'm willing to be reasonable if Clara hands over 50% of the sanctuary's equity." The woman didn't laugh. She just pulled out a document from her briefcase. Actually, I'm here to inform you that your lawsuit has been instantly dismissed with prejudice. And because you used state resources, this library, to file a strong, frivolous, and fraudulent claim, your library privileges are being revoked indefinitely. Arthur's grin glitched and vanished. What? On what grounds?